HOA president claimed my off-grid cabin, but I filmed her sabotage and took her down. Have you ever felt the chilling invasion of your most private sanctuary, a place where you sought solace and independence, only to find it under siege by someone else's audacious, self-serving claims? I'm Elias Vance, and my off-grid cabin, perched precariously on a remote bluff overlooking the vast, untamed expanse of the Redwood National Park, was my entire world. It wasn't just a dwelling. It was a testament to self-sufficiency, powered by solar panels, fed by a natural spring, and built with my own hands from salvaged materials. It was a place where I pursued my passion for wildlife conservation, meticulously documenting the movements of endangered species for a local research institute. My cabin was remote, accessible only by a single, winding, unpaved trail that snaked through dense forest. Then, Ms. Genevieve Sterling arrived. Genevieve, the newly elected, self-anointed queen of the sprawling, pristine Redwood Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, saw my humble, eco-friendly cabin not as a model of sustainable living, but as an unacceptable rural intrusion. She was all sharp angles and sharper pronouncements, a woman whose perfectly coiffed silver hair and designer hiking gear screamed unapproachable perfection. Her first official act, it seemed, was to send me a curt, imperious letter demanding the immediate dismantling of my solar array, the capping of my natural spring, and the removal of my unsightly composting system. Her ultimate, thinly veiled demand was for me to connect to the HOA's municipal services and conform to their elevated standards, effectively stripping my cabin of its off-grid independence and forcing me into their expensive, regulated system. Her tone was dripping with condescension, her words a thinly veiled threat against everything I held dear. She looked at my cabin, a beacon of ecological harmony, as if it were a festering wound on the pristine landscape she envisioned. I tried to reason with her, calmly explaining the environmental benefits of my off-grid setup, its minimal impact on the surrounding ecosystem, and the fact that my property, while bordering Redwood Ridge, was technically outside their jurisdictional boundaries, governed solely by county zoning laws for remote properties. I even provided official environmental impact reports, highlighting my cabin's net-zero footprint and its contribution to local conservation data. Genevieve merely waved a dismissive hand, her perfectly manicured nails glinting. "Mr. Vance," she purred, her voice a brittle whisper of disdain, "your unconventional lifestyle is simply not suited for the elevated standards of Redwood Ridge Estates. We are building a community of distinction, and frankly, your primitive dwelling detracts from our property values. The bylaws are clear. All residences must adhere to our architectural and utility guidelines." Her words, delivered with an air of unassailable authority, left no room for debate. She was not interested in sustainability or conservation. She was interested in control and exclusivity. The true nightmare began on a stormy Tuesday morning. I returned to my cabin after a week of tracking a rare spotted owl, only to find a scene of utter devastation. My meticulously installed solar panels, my primary source of power, lay shattered on the ground, their glass shards glinting malevolently in the dim light. My rainwater collection barrels were overturned, their contents spilled, and the pipe leading from my natural spring had been severed, gushing precious water uselessly onto the forest floor. Crude signs, emblazoned with the Redwood Ridge HOA logo, were hammered into the ground, declaring the area under HOA management unauthorized structures removed. My heart pounded with a mix of fury and disbelief. They had sabotaged my very existence, effectively cutting off my power and water, rendering my off-grid haven uninhabitable. As I stared at the wreckage, a glint of something metallic caught my eye near the shattered solar panels. It was a small, high-definition security camera, cleverly disguised as a rock, still blinking faintly. My blood ran cold. I quickly retrieved it, and a quick check revealed a shocking truth. The camera, which I had secretly installed weeks ago after noticing suspicious activity near my property line, had captured everything. The video, timestamped just after midnight, showed Genevieve herself, dressed in dark clothing, directing a small crew. She wasn't just supervising. She was actively participating, wielding a crowbar to smash my solar panels, her face illuminated by a flashlight, a triumphant smirk on her lips. At one point, She paused, looked directly at the camera, though clearly unaware of its presence, and muttered, "That'll teach him to defy the HOA. This land will be perfect for the new exclusive hiking trail." And then, a chilling detail. The camera also captured a brief, whispered conversation between Genevieve and a man I recognized as Mr. Thompson, the head of Redwood Trails Development, a company known for building luxury hiking paths. They were discussing the final phase of their plan to acquire the land my cabin stood on, claiming it was undeveloped HOA common property and that my cabin was an illegal encroachment. The new exclusive hiking trail, I realized, was designed to cut directly through the heart of the endangered spotted owl's nesting grounds, the very area I was meticulously documenting for the Research Institute. This wasn't just about my cabin. It was a calculated, high-stakes conspiracy, threatening not only my home, but a vital ecological habitat and a major conservation project. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, the video footage of the sabotage, the incriminating conversation, and my detailed wildlife research data, I resolved to confront Genevieve publicly. I learned she had called an emergency HOA meeting, ostensibly to present a new community initiative, the Redwood Ridge Exclusive Wilderness Trail. I arrived, my evidence ready, just as Genevieve, radiating an almost unbearable smugness, began her presentation, complete with glossy renderings of the new hiking trail winding through what she claimed was undeveloped HOA land. I waited for a lull, then stood up, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Genevieve," I stated, holding up my tablet with the video paused on her smirking face. "I believe this footage and your recent actions sheds a rather inconvenient light on your wilderness trail." Her eyes, which had been sparkling with self-satisfaction, immediately narrowed. She quickly recovered, her voice sharp. "Mr. Vance, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is a private HOA matter. You are disrupting our proceedings." She attempted to rally the other HOA members, painting me as a disgruntled, eccentric recluse, a nuisance to their refined community. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is precisely the kind of element we are trying to remove from our beautiful Redwood Ridge. But just as she was about to call for me to be removed, a quiet, unassuming woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, a renowned ornithologist from the Research Institute I collaborated with, rose from her seat. She had been attending the meeting incognito, alerted by a tip from one of my fellow researchers who had noticed suspicious activity near the owl's nesting sites. "Actually, Ms. Sterling," Dr. Sharma interjected, her voice calm but authoritative, "Mr. Vance raises a very serious point. And I also have something to add." She then projected a series of infrared images onto the screen. Clear, undeniable pictures showing the active nesting sites of the endangered spotted owls, directly in the path of Genevieve's proposed exclusive trail. "This area," Dr. Sharma continued, her voice gaining strength, "is a critically protected habitat. Any development here is a direct violation of state and federal wildlife protection laws. And the claim that this land is undeveloped HOA common property is false. It is clearly marked as part of the Redwood National Park buffer zone, and Mr. Vance's cabin is on private land within that zone." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Before Genevieve could even stammer a denial, the doors to the community hall swung open. Two stern-faced individuals from the National Park Service, accompanied by a county sheriff's deputy, walked in. They had been tipped off by Dr. Sharma, who had confirmed my initial suspicions. "Genevieve Sterling," one of the Park Service agents announced, his voice devoid of emotion, "you are in violation of multiple federal environmental protection acts, including the Endangered Species Act and the National Parks and Recreation Act. The deliberate destruction of private property within a buffer zone, the attempted development on protected land, and the suppression of environmental impact assessments constitute felonies. We also have reports of forged documents submitted to the county for this wilderness trail project." Genevieve's face, which had been a mask of carefully constructed composure, crumbled into a terrified, pale mess. Her jaw went slack, her eyes darting wildly around the room, searching for an escape that wasn't there. She stammered, then erupted into a desperate, high-pitched shriek, blaming misunderstandings, overzealous contractors, and a misunderstanding of the land deeds. It was the pathetic wail of a tyrant whose kingdom had suddenly collapsed. Then, a surprising voice emerged from the crowd. Mr. Davies, a long-standing, quiet member of the HOA board and a respected local land surveyor, stood up, his face etched with regret. "And Miss Sterling," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Perhaps you'd also like to explain why you pushed so hard for this wilderness trail project. Not for the community's benefit, but because Redwood Trails Development, the company you're so eager to partner with, is secretly owned by your estranged son, and you intended to use this deal to bail him out of his failing business ventures, all under the guise of community enhancement." The revelation hung in the air, a final, poisoned arrow. Genevieve had been exploiting the HOA not for the community's benefit, but for her own illicit financial gain and to save her son's failing company. The fallout was swift and brutal. Genevieve was immediately stripped of her HOA presidency, her reign ending in public humiliation and a perp walk captured by local news. The National Park Service launched a full-scale investigation, leading to severe fines and criminal charges for environmental destruction, fraud, and attempted land appropriation. Redwood Trails Development, facing legal repercussions and public outrage, immediately lost their lucrative contracts and faced a barrage of investigations, leaving Genevieve utterly isolated and financially ruined. She lost her position, her reputation, her social standing, and faced a future of crushing debt and legal battles. Her karma was a public, humiliating spectacle, a direct consequence of her petty tyranny and audacious fraud. I felt a profound sense of vindication, a quiet triumph that justice, however painfully achieved, had prevailed. My cabin was repaired, my solar panels replaced, and my research continued, now with even more support from the National Park Service and the Audubon Society. The community, shaken but united, began the process of rebuilding trust and respecting the delicate balance of nature. In a world where bureaucratic power can become a weapon, and individual ego can endanger an entire ecosystem and the well-being of many, where do we draw the line between upholding rules and protecting nature and personal property? When faced with such blatant disregard for the environment and the rights of others, what would you have done?